Alrighty. See, I've got one person logged in. Oop, 3 people. So we are officially about halfway through this book. Hey, Elijah. Hey, Reagan. Sorry about yesterday. I had some parents email about some power outages. So I figured rather than being able to Zoom and just read with a couple people, we would just wait until today. All right. So we left off. Hey, Wes. We left off where Marta was telling John that maybe Jacob should be enrolled in school. So we will see what happens. We also know that the friend that they've been playing with, the mom, has been inquiring more questions recently about Jacob. Chapter 27. The boy found a snake. It was a small and green and narrow. It was small and green and narrow, weaving swiftly through the tall grass. Jacob scooped it up and studied it, head to tail. The snake curled around his wrist and lifted its head, as if, too, were studying the creature who held it. The beagle backed away, flapping his silent mouth, scolding the snake. Marta was sweeping the porch when Jacob approached. "What's that you—" "Oh, well now, that appears to be a. The snake was comfortably coiled around Jacob's wrist and in his palm. "John," Marta called. "John, come see what—" "Ooh, my, what a nice, what an interesting—" "John!" John beamed when he saw the boy holding the snake. "Well, look there, you caught a little gardener snake. Isn't he something? John, I think you and Jacob might want to take that somewhere else." "Oh, sure," he said. Later that day, when the boy was riding the cow, John said, "How about that boy, Marta? He caught a snake. I think he's going to be just fine." "Well, goody good. But I want you to know one thing, John. I hate snakes. I hate the sight of them. I hate the very thought of them. And no boy of mine is bringing any snakes into this house." Sure, I understand," John said. "But how about that? He caught a snake and he wasn't even afraid." "Huh? I don't see what's so miraculous about that." John didn't see any point in explaining, even if he could. But he was thinking, how about that? My boy caught a snake. So John is calling Jacob his boy. Marta's saying, "No boy of mine." It's almost like they're forgetting that Jacob is not their son. That night, a storm blew through. Winds lashed the trees, sending buckets tumbling and barn doors rattling. Chairs skidded across the back porch, and roof shingles flapped and flipped. In the morning, John and Marta surveyed the debris cluttering the yard. The wind had sheared the top off of a tall hickory tree and thrust its branches onto the roof. "Best cut the rest of that tree down," John said. "Knew it was mostly hollow. It's a skinny thing. Shouldn't be much trouble." Marta and the boy watched from the porch as John finished sawing the base. The tree came down with a clean swoosh and thud. Jacob's gaze fastened on something dropping out of the knothole in the newly fallen tree. He rushed forward, the beagle at his side. "What is it?" John asked. "What's he after, Marta?" They heard tiny cries, barely audible squeaks. The boy nudged the beagle behind him and crouched his arms, forming a protective circle around 4 squirming, squealing critters. "Well, look there," John said, coming to the boy's side. "Baby squirrels, newly born. I'd say 1 or 2 days old at most." "Are you sure, John? They look so, I don't know, so creepy." "They're squirrels, all right. Let them be." "But what will happen to them?" "They're rodents. We don't need any more rodents." John moved to the upper portion of the fallen tree and began sawing off limbs. "Come on, Jacob," Marta said. You can help me round the buckets and baskets that went flying last night." She was halfway to the barn when she realized Jacob was not following her. He was scooping up dirt and leaves and nudging the baby squirrels into a roughly fashioned nest in his hand. After he carried his bundle to the hollow stump and gently set them inside, Jacob moved to the shade of another tree on the far side of the house. From there, he could watch over the stump. The boy didn't come in for dinner. "He's still watching the old stump," John said. "I tried to get him to come in, but he looked so worried. I thought I'd better leave him. I wish I knew what he was thinking, Marta." "He's probably wondering if the mother will come back," she said. And as soon as she said that, she felt something clump in her chest. So Jacob saved the squirrels, the babies. He put them in the stump of the tree, and now he's just watching. And Marta said, "Well, maybe he's just watching to see if their mother comes back." And as she said that, she was realizing maybe, oh my gosh, could that be what Jacob is waiting for? Chapter 28. One day the boy cried. He had fed the animals and then sat on the fence playing his guitar. "It's so mournful," Marta said. "How does he know these songs?" "I think he makes them up as he goes." "How does a person do that, Marta? I can't hardly fathom it." "Usually he plays sweeter songs. This one is sad." "Is he sad?" The boy stopped playing, his hand still cradling the guitar. He bowed his head. Marta and John went to the boy's side and saw that he was crying. "What's wrong?" Marta asked, putting an arm around his shoulders. John knelt in front of the boy. "Did something happen?" The boy gestured to the hollow stump where he had left the baby squirrels. John walked over to the stump, knelt, and peered inside. "They're gone. The babies are gone." The boy tapped his chest. "The mother came back for them?" The boy nodded. "Well, that's good then, isn't it, honey?" The boy's thumb slid across the guitar strings. He looked at the sky and backed out at the ground, as if he wasn't sure how to answer her question. After the boy was asleep that evening, Marta said, "John, I can hardly stand it. That boy must miss his mother, and we are being selfish. We have to find her." "I know it. What were we thinking? How could we?" "But he seemed so happy here, though." "He did. And they asked us to watch him. They said they'd be back." And I think they're talking about the little note that was in Jacob's pocket. The next morning, they saw the boy racing in the yard with the dog. They saw him climb the fence and slide onto the cow's back, laughing his silent laugh. They saw him slide off the cow onto the grass and roll down the hill with the dog and the goats chasing after him. They saw him dip a brush into the paint can and paint a glorious blue tree shading a red goat. They heard him tapping a lively beat on the drums. They saw him hug the dog and accept the dog's slaughtery licks on his face. "See," Marta said, "he is happy." "I'm feeling confused, Marta," said John. Chapter 29. John was in the sheriff's office. "You find old man Crankin's cow?" the sheriff asked. "No, and that's not why I've come." "Well, did you lose something?" "No." The sheriff's thumb slid across his badge, shining it. "Well, then." And so John told him about the boy, about how the boy appeared on his porch, how they'd become protective of him and fond of him. The sheriff pointed a finger at John. "So are you saying you lied to me?" "Well, sir, I tried to." "You lied to me. You said you were watching the boy for someone." "Well, sir, technically we are. We just don't know who that someone is." "And you didn't bother to report this?" "Well, sir, I did try. You may recall I came here inquiring about a missing boy. But you didn't tell me the whole truth, did you?" "No, sir. I probably should have asked about missing parents. You could be locked up for this. Do you know that? No, sir. I'm telling you, you could be locked up for this. John took a step back. Do you mean to tell me that protecting a child and feeding him and caring for him is a crime? The sheriff again pointed at John. It is if you don't have permission. It is if nobody knows where the child is. Well, he had a note. Do you see? And here's the note. Remember, this is the same one we saw before. The way it's written, remember, lots of spelling errors, kind of sloppy handwriting. Please take care of Jacob. He is a good boy. We will be back when we can. The sheriff studied the note. How do I know you didn't write this yourself? What? Look, I didn't write the note. We don't know who did write it. We figured they'd be back later that day or the next day and nobody knew where this boy was. What? The people knew, the people who left him. And maybe they told other people. And we knew where he was, my wife and I. Don't be getting clever with me. No, sir, I won't. So why did you come in here today? Well, I suppose we ought to try to find the boy's family. You tired of the boy? Is that it? You're ready to be rid of him? No, sir, no. My wife, she'd actually be heartbroken to give him up. But we want to do the right thing by the boy. And you expect me to believe that you didn't just snatch this boy from somebody's yard, that this boy just appeared on your porch one morning? It's the truth. The sheriff's receptionist, Darlene, came in from the back room. What's the truth? She asked. Next chapter. Chapter 30. They were all in the barn, Marta, John, Jacob, and the sheriff. Marta's heart was thumping in her chest. John's tongue felt as dry as if he'd licked sand. The boy was sitting on the hay table, drumming on a pail with 2 sticks. The beagle was curled at his feet. So this is the boy, the sheriff asked, the one that just appeared one day? Marta wanted to grab the boy and flee. She wanted to thunk the sheriff on the head. She wanted to scream. Let's have a look at him, the sheriff said. Come here, boy. The boy kept drumming, engrossed in his work. Is he deaf or what? No, Marta said. So he just doesn't obey? He doesn't know you, that's all. Or maybe he didn't hear you because he's concentrating. The sheriff approached the boy. Marta slipped in front of the sheriff and knelt beside the boy. This is the sheriff, she explained. He wants to meet you. What's his name again? Jacob. He doesn't speak. Boy, the sheriff shouted. He's not deaf. You don't have to shout at him, Marta said, and he has a name. It's Jacob. Yeah, you told me. Boy, look at me. How'd you get here? We told you he doesn't speak, Marta said. Boy, did these people snatch you and bring you here? Sheriff! Did they, boy? The boy drummed on. Are they keeping you penned up here in this barn? Sheriff! Doesn't he even nod, yes or no? Sure, he does. Then why isn't he doing that? Boy, did somebody else bring you here? Did somebody drop you off? The beat of the tin drums was lively. The beagle thumped his tail. Where you from, boy? Come on, say something. He doesn't speak, Sheriff. So you said. Maybe you threatened him. You told him not to talk. Marta stood. Sheriff, we did not threaten him. Look at him. Does he look afraid? Does he look threatened? No, he's content. He is happy here. The sheriff walked around the property and checked inside the house. He saw the drums and paints and the small room that had been set up for the boy to sleep in. And you say he just appeared on your porch one day, is that right? Yes, John said. Out of the blue, just like that? Yes. Sort of like that cow appeared one day? Well, sort of, but not the same. I mean, the boy wasn't tied up to a railing like the cow was. The boy was asleep on the porch and he had a note. The cow didn't have a note. Uh-huh. The sheriff tapped his boot against the railing. And how many days has he been here? Days. Well, now, let's see. I can't, it's more like weeks. Weeks? He's been here for weeks? Well, now, I don't exactly, and you're just now getting around to reporting it? John sank onto a chair on the porch and pressed his hands to his face. He did not want to cry in front of the sheriff, but that's what he felt like doing. He wanted to sob like a baby. Sheriff, we didn't mean to get attached to him, but okay, I get it. I've got kids and grandkids. I get it. You do? Look, it still sounds fishy to me, but the boy does look well cared for, so he can stay here for now. It hadn't even occurred to John that the sheriff might take the boy away. That thought filled John with such dread that he thought he'd be sick all over the sheriff's feet. Sheriff, you wouldn't. You couldn't just take the boy isn't yours. But you could take I am the law. The sheriff tapped his badge and returned to his car. I'll do some checking around. I'll let you know if I find out anything. One more chapter. Chapter 31. John and Marta were rattled with worry. In front of the boy, they tried to remain calm and cheerful as usual. But at night, they lie awake. I shouldn't have gone to the sheriff, John said. You had to do that sooner or later. I wish I hadn't gone. I didn't like his tone, did you? No, he acted as if we were criminals, as if we had stolen the boy, as if we were keeping him here against his will. The nerve. The next morning, the boy started a new painting in the barn. He had already filled the lower section of one side of the barn with a wide landscape. Blue trees, red paths, purple animals, blue and red purple swirls, and bubbles in the air. He found some black paint and created an enormous black cloud hovering over the scene. Marta came running into the barn. John, what's wrong? Is it the sheriff? No, but I just realized. It just came to me. Look. She stood beside him, lowering her voice and indicating the painted scene. Maybe that's where he's from. What? You think he's painting it? Gosh, why didn't we think of that? But Marta, you think he's from a blue forest or something? No, don't be silly. They watched the boy begin a new scene. It looked like a creek. Marta tapped the boy's shoulder and turned him toward the other wall with its complete scene. Do you know that place? She asked. The boy regarded the painting. Is that where you came from? The boy scratched the back of his neck. Is that your home? The boy scratched his knee. Marta, maybe he doesn't remember. But how could he not remember? Well, kids might not. How could he paint it if he didn't remember it? That night, Marta suggested a plan. We're going exploring. We are? All three of us. See this map? See this circle? We'll get in the truck and cover all of this area. And we'll be looking for what exactly? For the scene he painted. For blue trees, purple animals, and a red creek? Don't be silly, John. All right. So the sheriff came. At first, it did not go well, did it? Okay. Then the sheriff realized, well, you know what? You are taking care of him, but you definitely shouldn't have waited so long to report it. But the sheriff did say, I am the law. So they could take him. Marta had the idea, well, he's painting these scenes on the barn wall. Maybe that's where he's from. So they're going to go out and explore. All right. I will see you in just a couple minutes on Zoom. Check your Canvas inbox for a link. All right. Bye, guys. See you soon.